Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson at 3, and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money. We're live on the air at 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at KBC.com. Your on-demand Mottek On Money podcast. KBC.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all your favorite podcast platforms. Of course, also on the social platforms, too. Stocks pulling back for the second day in a row after President Trump moved his July 9th deadline for the resumption of reciprocal tariff rates to August 1st, giving many countries 3 more weeks to come out with trade deals here with the U.S. Today, the president said there would be no extension beyond the August 1st deadline. The president also announced he would impose a 50% tariff on copper imports to America and threatened duties as high as 200% on drug imports. Looks like that impacted the price of copper today in a big way, as well as impacted the pharmaceutical stocks. The market responded sharply to those headlines. In fact, copper futures up more than 10%, and the major drug names, including Pfizer, Amgen, and AbbVie, did cut back earlier gains after the president said he will unveil a new pharmaceutical tariff program very soon. Amazon shares pulling back a bit as the Prime Day deals kicked off this week. We're going to be getting the notes from the Fed's last big meeting. That'll be coming out tomorrow. And Delta Airlines earnings news will be coming out on Thursday as we start the earnings season. Amazon's Prime Day deals taking center stage for consumers this week. Walmart trying to get in on some of the action here on the excitement over Amazon Prime Day. Solar stocks also back in focus after President Trump signed an executive order aimed at stricter enforcement of already scaled-back credits for solar and wind projects inside the big, beautiful bill, which was signed into law last Friday on the 4th of July. We did see some of the solar names, First Solar and Solar Edge, moving lower on that executive order signed last night, which instructs the Treasury Department to enforce stricter enforcement of beginning of construction in order to close loopholes. That order, seen as appeasing conservatives who argued in construction was a loose term that allowed green projects to receive extra time to qualify for solar credits. Copper futures did get at pop today. We'll focus on that coming up here along with the other metals. The overall market, though, did pull back. The Dow down 166 at the closing bell. The S&P 500 down 4. The Nasdaq, though, managed to hold on to a closing gain of 6 points. The volatility index pulled back 5% today. Homeowners have been taking the standard tax deduction in recent years, might want to give itemization another look this year, as the president's tax law might give new mortgage deductions. We'll take a closer look at that with Jeff LAZERSON later this hour, the president of MortgageGrader.com, an Orange County Register real estate columnist. Federal agents continue enforcing immigration laws here in the Los Angeles area, including a dramatic raid on MacArthur Park in Los Angeles yesterday. We'll get the latest on what's happening and reaction from the Honorable Dennis ZINE, former L.A. City Council member and former LAPD sergeant with more than 50 years of service to the City of Angels. Dennis ZINE will be on the line live with us later this hour. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, the whole works now. Copper, too. Let's bring in top-ranked money manager Ken Winans, president and chief investment officer of Winans Investments at WINANSinvestments.com. Ken Winans, a familiar name and voice here on this station, author of numerous books, including Investment Atlas 1, 2, and 3, Forbes magazine contributor. Also, he has his crypto credentials. And, of course, most importantly, he's host of Winning with Winans, heard every Monday night at 6 p.m. on your favorite station, 790 KBC. We say good afternoon to you, Ken Winans.
Frank Mottek, I'll tell you, it's interesting as a commodity guy to look at the tremendous run that has happened in the metals complex. And as you know, I'm a history geek and I love statistics. So let me give something here for anybody thinking this move in copper is just simply tied to the tariffs, has nothing to do with anything more than politics. The simple fact of the matter is, if you're looking at the month of July, and by the way, since I now live in Las Vegas, let's put it in betting odds terms. Gold, copper, and silver in the month of July typically move up between 61 and 65%. And the part that's amazing about copper is that 65% of the time in the month of July, it moves up 4.3%. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, this was a major run, but not out of the norm of what it historically has done. And I would just also throw out to anybody that has been told by their advisors as they go into the talks about mid-year performance, and undoubtedly they're going to be told they need to move into foreign stocks in order to keep up. I would just simply tell them, look, there's a lot of foreign countries out there who produce copper, including Mexico. What I'm saying is, why don't you just simply look at the CPER copper ETF and not get involved in the political and currency issues of the third world? So, Frank, it's an amazing day what's going on. It really is.
On the air live with Ken Winans, top-ranked money manager, WINANSinvestments.com. And certainly it's been said copper is the only metal with a degree in economics. They call it Dr. Copper. And when copper moves up, that's usually a positive sign for the economy, right?
Well, it is. What's hard about copper, and again, this is, not everybody understands commodities. I was a commodity analyst. I actually worked at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange for a partnership many years ago, and it was one of the best lessons in economics. But here's the thing to remember. A lot of people, in my opinion, have been misreading the move in gold, silver, and copper. Everybody is assuming inflation. The problem with that analysis is that when you look at everything else in the commodity world, a lot of them are moving south. A lot of the agricultural commodities are in fact having a loss for the year. So I don't buy into that. But it is amazing for anybody who took the advice of Mottek On Money. Certainly, I'm sure you've had other people talking about it too. If you're a metal person, you have had one of the best years you've had in years. I mean, copper's up 34% year to date. Gold and silver are both up 26% year to date. And quite frankly, Frank, excuse the pun, these rallies are powerful and they still have legs to go, in my opinion.
Frank, discussion here with Ken Winans, top-ranked money manager, WINANSinvestments.com. And zooming out to the broader market here now, tariffs are back in focus now that the big, beautiful bill was signed into law on the 4th of July on Friday. And the uncertainty there has now lifted as far as that bill and the tax policy and so forth, and a lot to unpack in that bill. And now tariffs. August 1st is the next big deadline here. Ken, what's your expectation here as this tariff back and forth?
Mic drop. Hosted by former Navy SEAL Mike Ritland. It's raw.
Any single time that you left the wire, you could lose 4 guys.
It's unfiltered.
That was the most horrible screaming I'd ever heard. Taking a hit on the chin, you want to pay it back?
It's tough talk from the top minds in their field.
Would I choose to not do our duty as military fighting men? No, I would not make that decision, without question.
Mic drop. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Continues.
It's going to be an interesting combo of earnings reports, the tariffs, and then on top of it, there was a very interesting report out. A whole bunch of the companies of the S&P 500, approximately 200 of them, have decided to basically abandon ESG and DEI type language where they're just looking at pure competition. I think the mix of all this stuff is going to make this earnings season one of the most interesting around. But Frank, what I would say is this. Again, I talked about seasonality of copper a moment ago. The stock market, it has seasonality. It's not perfect. It doesn't mean you use it strictly as the one and only magic wand you use to be an investor. But the simple fact of the matter is that July, August, and going into September are typically soft times. And so what I would just tell everybody is this. This earnings season is going to be volatile. Similar, certainly not as crazy as we saw last April, but we should expect there's going to be good, bad, and ugly. And I would just simply suggest that everybody should get prepared and that you should have absolutely no pet stocks in your portfolio. If something is not working out well, get rid of it, move into something else, or hold cash for better buying opportunities later in the fall. But Frank, the tariffs are going to have, I think that from the standpoint of money flows, and you and I talked about it last night on Winning with Winans. This idea of people moving their money into foreign stock funds, when you're getting ready to get hammered with a bunch of tariffs from the United States, that to me is like buying a piece of property when you know a hurricane's coming your way on the coast. It doesn't make any sense at all. I think that American money's going to flow back in the United States in a lot of ways and take advantage of buying opportunities for companies that have been able to adapt to this new environment.
One thing after another today, drug stocks also took the spotlight after the president made a comment during a cabinet meeting saying if the drug companies have to bring the drugs into the country, they're going to be tariffed at a very high rate, like 200%. And the big drug names took a hit on that one. Are you touching any of those at this time?
It depends. Here's the thing about the drug situation. A lot of these companies had already adapted during the COVID years to the logistical issues, and especially if we all remember, there was such priority on our medical industry to get a handle on the COVID crisis. A lot of the companies already have their distribution lines in place with alternatives. A lot of them have already agreed to move manufacturing back to the United States. I'm actually looking at today, there were actually a few drug stocks that were actually up because they've already made these adjustments. Frank, this earnings season, and again, for people who have been so used to just buying an ETF or just believing in just buying the market, I really think you have a world where individual companies, not industries, are going to dictate the good and the bad years for investors. And it's dusting off the playbooks from a long time ago. But I think that investors that are using individual securities might find they have a lot more flexibility in dealing with this new market versus anything else. A very, very good case in point. Let me just bring up financials. Big report came out today that Bank America continues to lose some of its biggest investors. Well, if you own Bank America, you're not happy, but there's a lot of other banks out there who are doing just fine in this environment. Again, stock picking, I think, rules in this kind of environment.
And speaking of B of A and the big dog on Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, both raising their expectations as to where the S&P 500 will be by the end of the year, citing deeper Fed rate cuts, lower bond yields, and so forth. What is this bull run going to continue here? And do you have any targets here for the rest of the year?
I think that it's so funny. I started the year thinking that this was going to be a single-digit year. I still think it probably is, but it's not going to be low single digits. It's certainly going to be high single digits. What I would say is this. I think it really comes down to the investor and what they're in. This is what I would call a Warren Buffett style year. Did you make good picks? What I would say is this, you just talked about financials. Let's take this as case in point. The next rung in the Trump ladder is financial modernization, or as the old term used to be, deregulation, and that involves crypto. That involves all these new innovations in fintech. And a company like JP Morgan, where they already have their own blockchain technology, they're going to be further ahead than some of the players that just have been slow to adapt. I've been astounded how well the insurance companies have weathered the storm, especially with this tragedy in Texas. You would expect the insurance companies to just absolutely be getting killed today. That is not the case. So again, I think that you have to give some credit to our financial service industry being one of the more nimble parts of our economy. But no, I think that you're going to look at the fall. Anybody sitting in a large amount of cash after September 30th, I think you're going to regret you didn't get fully invested. But between now and then, be careful on what you buy. And as I said before, get rid of your dogs. If they're not making money, get rid of them.
All right, let's get to some of the exciting stuff here now and have you put your crypto hat on for just a moment. Bitcoin still hovering near its all-time high, holding up quite well on this wall of worry that we've seen recently. Right now, just shy of 109,000 at the last check. Ethereum, we had that big bounce back in the recent months, back above 2,600. Doge has pulled back to 17 cents here. What are your thoughts on what's happening in these crypto moves?
Frank, as much as I agree with you. It's amazing to see what's going on with the crypto itself. But I am just blown away with how well Coinbase, which is largely the exchange for, it's a major exchange for a lot of these crypto currencies, and also making a big play into the stable coin area. That stock is up 42% on the year. And again, I actually think, and I've been saying for a while, I would not be at all surprised to see Coinbase become more or less the NASDAQ in the financial service area, where they're the go-to place for all these banks and all these investment firms, they're going to start offering crypto savings accounts. I mean, again, I'm a little hesitant to be buying a stock that's had that much of a rally, and it is really volatile. But I think, again, if a lot of people say, I'm not comfortable with crypto. Well, that's fine. If you don't want to play crypto and deal with the wallets and cold storage and all this other stuff, you can buy stocks tied to that area of the economy. And in the Trump world, as I wrote in my last Forbes article called, The Great Whipsaw of 2025, which I'd encourage the audience to go read, I clearly said you better start pivoting into the Trump stocks, and crypto stocks are Trump stocks.
On the air live with top-ranked money manager Ken Winans at WINANSinvestments.com. And at this point, Ken Winans, let me ask you the big question here. Are there any specific places where you are putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Well, I mean, I mentioned earlier, I just went through this over the last couple of weeks. I mean, anything that I'm looking at that's below its 200-day moving average just really hasn't recovered from the sell-off in April. I mean, my attitude is nothing personal. They might be great companies, but I can come back to fight another day. In this market, I want to be in winners. But, there's a couple of areas that people just really don't talk much about. The unsung heroes of this rally have been retail and, Frank, believe it or not, service stocks. You don't even talk about it. You hear about, labor costs are going high. We're laying people off. I'm looking here. There's a couple, and it's funny because we talk about education. If you read the new Big Beautiful Bill, there is real, basically, incentives for these smaller educational type companies, including, hey, they're talking about even 529 money being, moving in other areas. Take a good look at Laureate Education, symbol LAUR, and then Grand Canyon Education, symbol LOPE. They're education stocks, but they're actually on my growth list, if for what it's worth there. I would also, it's really kind of funny when you think about it. Take a look at some stock like Republic Services, garbage collection. It's up 19% on the year. RSG. I think these kind of groups, it's like the tortoise and the hare to the tech stocks. They get overlooked all the time, but these companies are outperforming most of the tech stocks this year. So again, I think people, pivot into Trump stocks, pivot into what works. And I still like the retailers, Frank. Again, earnings season being what it is, but you know what? They've had a magnificent run. They've weathered the storm. I think we're going to find the tariffs won't affect most of them. I think, again, people just need to start looking at some of these old line names and get comfortable with having them in their portfolio.
And last but not least, looks like President Trump had another meeting with the Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House today, with the Middle East still in focus and the war between Israel and Hamas continuing. It looks like the ceasefire between Israel and Iran appears to be holding. The price of oil, I should mention, is at a 2-week high. It got up to around 68 and change in New York, is now about $70 a barrel once again in London. What are your thoughts on oil and the energy patch as we watch for the latest headlines coming out of the Middle East?
The only thing I would say about energy plays, personally, I'm more inclined to look at the domestic plays because there's such an incentive for drill, baby, drill. I mean, we joke about the phrase, but I'm looking here at something like Antero Midstream, symbol AM. This again is a company that really focuses on U.S. Production itself. I look at something like that. But Frank, getting back on the Middle East, look, if you don't have defense stocks in your portfolio, you might want to go have a long talk with your advisor. You've missed. I mean, it's a massive growth area. It's very clear Europe is going to be rearming itself. I know some people morally have a tough time with this, but I mean, you can pretty much pick your lot and you're going to find a winner there. But some of my names that I like are companies like Curtiss-Wright, CW, and good old GE, symbol GE. I think, again, as we go through earnings season, if you get any pullback in these defense stocks, I would most certainly consider adding some to your portfolio.
Terrific, Ken. Well, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon on another very busy day. Ken Winans, President and Chief Investment Officer at Winans Investments, WINANSinvestments.com. His books include Investment Atlas 1, 2, and 3, Creating Wealth Using Historical Trends. That's the Investment Atlas 3, which came out recently. Also a Forbes magazine contributor. He mentioned his latest article, The Great Whipsaw of 2025. Investors need to pivot into Trump-era stocks. Ken, look forward to speaking with you again next Monday evening at 6 p.m. on Winning with WINANS right here on 790 KBC. And thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank. Take care, buddy.
Thank you very much. And let's get out to the freeways now on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. Mixed finish for stocks today, mostly lower. The Dow down 166 at 44,241. The S&P 500 down 4 at 6,225. And the NASDAQ managed a closing gain of 6 points at 20,418. Both the S&P 500 and NASDAQ coming off the all-time highs we hit last week. After a couple of down days this week now, the volatility index pulling back 5% today. Gold hovering at around 3,310 and change. Silver at $36.91 an ounce. And platinum, which has seen that epic run at $1,390.20 an ounce here at the moment. The price of oil perking up today at 40 cents at $68.33 a barrel, a 2-week high for the price of oil with the Middle East in focus. And Brent crude in London now at $70.15 a barrel, up 57 cents. Turning to the cryptos now, we see a Bitcoin up about 100 at 108,927. Ethereum hovering at around 2610 at $7. Solana at 151, and Doge at the moment at 17 cents. Tesla rebounding today up nearly $4 at 297 and change. Apple up 6 cents at 210.01. Nvidia kissing record highs here, up $1.76 at $160 a share. And now the latest news on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues, 790 K.
Mic Drop, hosted by former Navy SEAL Mike Ritland. It's raw.
Any single time that you left the wire, you could lose 4 guys.
It's unfiltered.
That was the most horrible screaming I'd ever heard. Taking a hit on the chin, you want to pay it back?
It's tough talk from the top minds in their field.
Would I choose to not do our duty as military fighting men? No, I would not make that decision, without question.
Mic Drop. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
ABC, good afternoon. Federal agents continue enforcing immigration laws here in the Los Angeles area, including a dramatic raid on the MacArthur Park area of Los Angeles yesterday. Let's get the latest on what's happening and a reaction now from the Honorable Dennis ZINE, former LA City Council member and former LAPD sergeant with more than 50 years of service to the City of Angels. Dennis ZINE, thank you very much for coming to the line.
You're welcome, Frank. Good afternoon to you and the listeners today. And this wonderful hot day in Los Angeles.
It is. I was in the Valley today thinking of you, actually. It happens to be a very warm, one of the warmest days we've had recently. And certainly things were heating up in MacArthur Park yesterday with that rather dramatic enforcement action there. MacArthur Park, of course, has become an area for drug dealing and homelessness and all sorts of illegal activity. Every time I drive through that area, I see, lately anyway, LAPD officers in the park usually making some kind of arrest. And yesterday was very dramatic. I didn't see it for myself, but certainly saw the news reports about it with immigration officers and other federal officers, including National Guard troops, it looks like, federalized in there with on horseback, some of them going through that whole area. What's your reaction to what happened yesterday?
Well, Frank, they definitely did a show yesterday. They brought in the cavalry, they brought in the armored vehicles, and they wanted to sweep the park. Obviously, the mayor was not pleased with that, along with some council members and some of the members of the community. And I think we can come to a conclusion very simply. Let the Los Angeles Police Department do their job. When they arrest someone, and they can check the immigration status, and if they are here illegally, let them call immigration. Let immigration then take that individual and do what they need to do in a legal manner. But the way this is working, you're causing unrest, you're causing chaos in the city of Los Angeles. In the areas that we have a lot of immigrants living in those areas, especially Rampart Division, those people are frightened. They're living in fear. A lot of people aren't going to work. A lot of businesses can't run their operations. And I think it'd be a very simple solution to say, let the LAPD, the sheriffs, whoever it may be, do their job. And if someone commits a crime, because this was first tasked to say, when they commit a crime, when they're violent, committing crimes, then we're going to do something for the immigration aspect. And I think if we go to something like that, it would solve these problems. They wouldn't have to go out in these mass operations and bring in the cavalry and bring in the military and cause this anxiety and this fear and then the combat between the armed people of the United States government against the individuals that the city for many years has said we're a city that welcomes everyone and immigration is not an issue. But if they want to take the bad guys, the criminals, the people who are committing crimes and they're here illegally, then fine, do that and leave the rest of the people to let them do their jobs, take care of their families and get along with life. Because if I was not here legally, I would be frightened to leave my home. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of people. It's affecting Los Angeles. It's affecting the economy. And I don't know when it's going to come to an end, but clearly there's a better way to do it than they're doing it now, and do away with some of the tactics that are taking place that cause great fear and anxiety within the city of Los Angeles. Again, we call it the city of the angels, but I'm trying to find where the angels are, and I think they're all hiding or they've left the scene of Los Angeles.
On the air with the Honorable Dennis ZINE, former Los Angeles City Council member, former LAPD sergeant, 50-plus years of service to the City of Angels. And I must say a lot of business people are cheering the enforcement actions as far as clamping down on crime in that neighborhood. We've heard from many business owners in that area, and restaurant owner in particular who already, I think, more than a year ago called on the mayor and the city to do something about the crime and homelessness in the area, with a lot of places closing for those reasons. What about the crime situation there in MacArthur Park, and how do you see the situation there? It's been portrayed as a children's camp. I've never seen any children in that area, by the way. What I have seen is homelessness, and it's just it's a tragedy, really. What you see in that beautiful park, MacArthur Park, such a fabulous place. That lake was emptied probably about 25 years ago, and they try to restore that place to its former glory. What do you see the situation there at MacArthur Park? Give us the real on what's happening there.
Well, I've been there many times. I've been to the famous restaurant we talked about, and Mr. Langer went on the media talking about the crime and the violence, etc. Clearly, that area has a tremendous amount of crime and violence. When you look at the entire map of the city of Los Angeles and they compare the statistics, you'll find that the Rampart Division, which is one of the main divisions within the city of Los Angeles, when you talk about the overall crime, you're going to find Rampart number 2. Central's number 1 and Rampart's number 2 when you take a 3-year study and look at crime stats. So clearly there's crime in that area. And that park in particular, that used to be a beautiful park for the people, but it's been taken over by the drug dealers, the gang members. They challenge the police. They cause a lot of problems. They need to clean that out before anything can happen, anything productive. But if you take the train, and I've taken the train from the San Fernando Valley down through the area, and it's a frightening ride. It's a very frightening ride. You don't feel safe. You don't feel secure. But when you only have 8,739 officers, they're spread pretty thin throughout the entire city of Los Angeles, which covers so many square miles. But the bottom line is there is crime there. There's a continuing problem, and the officers are outnumbered by the people who are committing the crime. So clearly the crime issue is one. Immigration is a second issue. While there's a crime, the number one issue is the crime that takes place. And there's a number of criminals in that area that prey on that community, in addition to all the street vendors that block the roadway, the sidewalks along that corridor. So there's a lot of issues, a lot of problems. And I think what the mayor needs to do is work with the federal government and say, let's clean this area up, and let the good people be here, let the children be here, let them play, let them use the park for what it's intended to be, not a homeless encampment, not a drug haven environment, and not an area that people are afraid to go to, period. That used to be a beautiful part of Los Angeles. But clearly it's deteriorated to the point that people are afraid to go there, afraid to venture into that neighborhood. And that's a sad part of Los Angeles.
Very much open-air drug dealing and anecdotally fake Social Security cards and fake documents peddled in that park as well. Any other insights to understand what's really happening there?
Well, clearly we need more enforcement of the criminal aspect. And if we do that in a specific manner in that area, and if we had enough resources. But again, when there's only 8,739 LAPD from the chief down to the recruit in the academy, and you got all the divisions to patrol, all the stations that have to be manned, and all the special operations, you don't have enough resources to really do what needs to be done. So I think that we could end this problem with the immigration issue. Let's go after the criminals, and if they are here illegally, let them then bring in ICE and let them do what they need to do. Those people who are committing crimes of violence, crimes that affect the neighborhood and the good people that want to live and raise a family in that community.
On the line with the Honorable Dennis ZINE, a couple other things we wanted to mention here as well. Been some recent crime incidents. Why don't you tell us what's gotten your attention most of all recently?
Well, we see the attacks. There's a story about this homeless individual attacked this lady, 52-year-old woman, broke her nose, a concussion. Simply a lady doing nothing to cause this type of situation to take place. We see
in
this
Los
happen.
Feliz,
We see a lot of attacks on people. Yes, it was.
In Los Feliz area.
Right, and I tell people what they need to do is when they are victims of a crime, report that. A lot of people don't report it anymore. Report those crimes. That's how they can deploy the personnel to protect you, your family, and the community. And there's a lot of people who are victims of crime that don't report it. Whether it's your catalytic converter getting stolen or anything else, need to report those crimes. That's very, very important. But again, 8739, that's the number of LAPD protecting the city of the Angels, and that's not enough officers. That's the other problem. We need to increase those ranks and file.
The Honorable Dennis ZINE, former Los Angeles City Council member, former LAPD sergeant, more than 50 years of service to the City of Angels. Dennis ZINE, thank you very much, as always, for coming to the line.
My pleasure, Frank. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's get the latest on your ride now on 790 KBC. Frank Mottek here for United Gold Group. Did you know that for more than 10,000 years, gold has been the greatest store of value and considered a safe haven asset to preserve your wealth? Now, with the U.S. debt at more than $36 trillion and climbing, a possible recession on the horizon, and the development of the digital dollar, central bank digital currency, it's more critical now than ever before to safeguard your assets like your cash savings and retirement accounts with physical gold. Opening a gold IRA is one of the best ways to secure your wealth and create a stable financial future. Stop worrying about your retirement in the market and cash savings in the bank. Feel confident, prepared, and in control with physical gold and silver. Give my friends at United Gold Group a call right now. The number is 800-753-8534. Mention Mottek and you get $1,000 worth of silver with a qualifying purchase. Call now, 800-753-8534. Again, that's 800-753-8534. Or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com. Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. The big, beautiful bill being unpacked turns out has a slew of updates affecting homeowners, especially here in California. The new law permanently extends the $750,000 limit on the amount of a mortgage eligible for the mortgage interest deduction. Also reinstates a provision allowing mortgage insurance premiums, which millions of homeowners pay annually, to be deducted as interest. Also, the state and local tax deduction, known as SALT, quadrupled, especially helpful for owners in states with high property taxes, including, you guessed it, California. Let's bring in Jeff LAZERSON now, the president of MortgageGrader.com, also Orange County Register real estate columnist. Jeff, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
Wonderful to speak with you again, Jeff. First of all, how are the rates looking here, first of all?
All right, rates not bad at all. They're hovering up and down a little bit, staying in a range 6 3/8% at one point for 30-year conforming fixed, up to 806,500. The 15-year fixed is at 5 3/8% at one point. The high balance loan, so that's 806,501 to 1,209,750 in LA and Orange County. So that 30 years at 6 5/8, the 15 years at 5 3/4. Government loans, that's FHA and VA, they're about 5 3/4% of the point, and the jumbo fixed, anything over 1,209,750 is at 6.5% at a point.
All right, and where do you see the rates go from here?
I think they're, well, you know, with the big beautiful bill act, adding all that, you know, all the debt, and then the tariffs talk again. I think that they might go up a little bit and then they'll come down. But I think they're, for the most part, they're staying in the same range. So we'll probably see it go up a little, but I still think by the end of the year you're going to see them down quite a bit.
All right. What does the big, beautiful bill mean for the mortgage business and for real estate here in Southern California? Well,
the best thing about it was the SALT tax change. So state and local taxes, that's what the SALT stands for. It was at a $10,000 cap. So for your property tax and your state income tax, you could only deduct $10,000. So if you had somebody for example, that had $1 million home, say the property taxes are 10 grand a year, and then they made about 200,000 a year at a 10% tax rate. So that's $20,000 in income tax from the state, and there's $10,000 from the real estate property tax. Well, you can't do anything with that $20,000 because it's over the limit. Now, because it's gone to $40,000, you have the $10,000 from the property, and you got $20,000 from the state income tax. That's 30 grand. Your cap is 40 grand, so you save a bunch of money. And so multiplying it out, bottom line is you're saving about $6,000 in deductions on your state income tax. So not bad at all. Next on the list, as you had mentioned, the PMI deductibility. So it's deductible again. And that's also for FHA and VA loans, which VA has a VA funding fee, not PMI insurance, but they're also included in that. Another big thing is bonus depreciation for rentals. So let's say that you own a rental property and you want to do repairs on it. Normally, things like HVAC and carpeting and putting new cabinets in, you would have to amortize it over 39 years. Well, now you're going to be able to take all the write-off in the very first year. There's repairs don't change. Repairs you can write off in the first year, and large items like a room addition, you still have to depreciate it over the 39 years. But the intermediary repairs, you're going to be able to write off 100% in the first year, which is a big change. And something else for everybody, the tips and the overtime. So if you think about the homebuyer situation where PMI insurance is now deductible again, and then you think about the people that with the tips and overtime, up to $25,000 in tips and overtime is not going to be taxed. So think about people that are going to be a first-time buyer or something like that. It might help them to get over the edge to be able to buy something between the no tax and between the deductibility of the PMI insurance.
On the air live with Jeff Lazerson, the president of MortgageGrader.com, also Orange County Register real estate columnist. Yesterday was the 6-month anniversary of the fires that ravaged the Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena. Jeff, I know you're following the recovery efforts there, which has been painfully slow and very disappointing in so many ways. And it's been interesting to see what the empty lots are going for now. And it looks like this whole situation has impacted rents rather dramatically here in the Los Angeles area. They've shot up, unlike we've seen in other places around the country. Give us your assessment here coming off this disaster 6 months later.
Well, I've heard from a lot of different people that live in that area, and there's a lot of discouragement out there. They are having problems with their insurance companies. They're having problems with the city, just a very slow process to be able to rebuild or being able to, find the architect and do all that stuff. And like you were saying, the rent situation is abysmal. It's just rents are really high. So I haven't really heard anybody, in fact, nobody that has called me about this or emailed me has said anything good about it. It's tough and people are going to have to wade through. One of the things I am seeing is there's more of a trend of people wanting to sell those lots. They just don't want to deal with it anymore, especially people that are a little bit older, because it could take years until everything's set up, and they just, they don't want to deal with all the moving parts. And it's very complicated to build a house between the plans and the contractor and the permits with the city. It's a lot. It's really a lot. Even for a room addition, it's a lot. But for a whole house, it's over the top.
All right. What's your next article we're looking for in the paper this weekend, Jeff?
Well, actually, you stole my thunder. I'm actually writing about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and I'm covering a lot of the things that we talked about on this phone call. So, it's a hot topic, and it's going to be good.
Terrific. Well, we'll look for it, and appreciate you laying it out so effectively, and always enjoy our conversations here, Jeff. Thank you very much for taking the call here today. Jeff Lazerson, the president of MortgageGrader.com, and be sure to check out his column in the Orange County Register and the Southern California News Group publications here. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon right here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
Vince Colonnese is redefining news talk.
Hi, I'm Vince Colonnese, host of the Vince Podcast. These conversations where we can air all of this out without the filters, without the censors, without people with judgment, that's how you get a healthy country. Adult, reasonable, sober conversations. That's all I want.
In-depth interviews, live caller interactions, and a front row seat to the most important conversations of the day.
That's why I'm so grateful that we get to do this every day. You are really the best damn audience in media.
The Vince Show.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.